Gabe, you're right here with us today, not in person. We're socially distant in our different locations here, but you're on with us. And, many people have seen the videos online of what happened. I think Tim is putting some links on our own social media so people can see it there. You can talk to us too about different things that they can come to listen to different programs you're a part of and see some of this stuff online. But basically, I saw a video of a group of Christians singing beautiful music out in public, outside, and all of a sudden, the police come and you end up getting taken away, I guess, hauled off to jail, it sounds like. Can you just kind of walk us through what happened and what many people saw in this viral video of you're literally handcuffed while your group is singing?
Yeah, to give a little context, we live in Idaho, which is about 30% Republican, so 70% Republican, 30% Democrat. But I live in there's only 2 liberal counties in the state of Idaho and that vote Democrat in the presidential elections. I live in one of them. And so that gives you a little context there. And then our mayor on July 2nd signed in a resolution requiring everyone to wear a mask where they could not social distance. And so that resolution happened July 2nd. And so we occasionally, this is one of the ways we kind of protest, is we actually go and sing psalms. That's kind of our habit, I guess, our custom of protesting when something happens like this. And so a couple times in July and August, we went in the middle of downtown and would sing psalms and protest, and reminding everybody of our First Amendment rights and our constitutional rights and our right to worship, and without the government defining what we wear during our worship. And so the mayor on September 21st, that's about 2 Mondays ago, extended the resolution. The city council voted to extend the resolution to January 5th. And so my pastors on Tuesday, decided, hey, let's go do another psalm sing on Wednesday at 4:45, and this time let's do it at City Hall, the parking lot in City Hall. And so, to our custom, and keep in mind, no one had ever been cited for this resolution since it came into act on July 2nd. So no one had been cited for it. No one had gotten a misdemeanor for it. No one had been arrested for it. So we were doing our peaceful worship protest thing. And so on Wednesday, we show up and the cops are there. And the cops had told my pastor, if no one's social distancing or not wearing a mask, then we will arrest them, or we will cite them and possibly arrest them. And so our pastor relayed that to the big crowd. We had about 150 people there, and no one moved. No one moved positions or anything. And so we started singing, and they immediately, the cops, the officers walked up, approached my mom first. Well, I was on the edge of the crowd, easy, pretty much closest to the cops being able to walk up, kind of thing. And so the cops walked up to my mom and said, "Is this man with you?" And my mom said, "Well, this is my son." And then I put my arm around my buddy Tyler, and I said, "But this is my friend." And obviously that signaled I wasn't social distancing or wearing a mask. And so the officer asked for my driver's license, and I didn't really even recognize that as a legitimate question, because I have constitutional right to worship. I have First Amendment rights to worship. They can't tell me what to wear during my worship or how far to stand apart during worship. And so I just told the officer, I said, "Hey, you don't have to do this." And he said, "Just give me your driver's license." And I said, you have a duty to protect and serve your citizens, not the mayor. Your job is to protect and serve the citizens, not the mayor. And the officer said, "Give me your driver's license." And then I, pulled the First Amendment card. I said, "I have a right to worship. I have my First Amendment rights here. You don't have to do this." And he said, "I'm asking one more time. I don't want to arrest you. And please give me your driver's license." And I responded and said, "Hey, look, you don't have to do this." And that's where he proceeded to arrest me. Now keep in mind in all this, our mayor was officiating a religious ceremony on September 5th, not social distancing and not wearing a mask. Our mayor in our town was at a party with about 50 people or more, not social distancing and not wearing a mask. And so there's just been actually an incredible, amount of hypocrisy here on our mayor and our city council's behalf. And I get arrested for actually practicing my First Amendment rights at City Hall in all this. And then after this, I get arrested. I go to Latah County Jail. At this point, I knew I was going to jail, and I'm in the back of the police car, and I realized, you know what, I'm just going to start preaching. I'm paying for some bond election. I'm paying for some misdemeanor, I'm sure. So I'm just going to get my money's worth. So I start preaching, and I start, bringing it back to the First Amendment. I start bringing it back to the gospel. And so I do that to the Moscow police that took me all the way to Latah County Jail. And then I get to the jail, and I just start doing the same thing. Every deputy that walked up to me, I started telling them this is wrong. This is not right, while I'm getting released, so I was in jail for about 2 hours. And while I'm getting released from jail, I'm sitting in a chair, getting booked out. And across the way in the office, there's 2 deputies not social distancing and not wearing a mask. And so I walk over to their office and say, hey, look, you guys aren't social distancing, not wearing a mask. We need to arrest you guys. I mean, I'm getting out of jail for that. And they just asked me, they're like, please leave, please leave. And I said, no, I'm getting out of jail for not social distancing, not wearing a mask. We need to arrest these deputies who are not doing it right here, right now.
This is just incredible for people hearing this. And if you haven't seen the videos online, I think we're going to have it on our social media too. But this really happened. We're going to talk more about it. We're going to take a quick time out. But after this break, we're going to come back on Stand in the Gap today. We're going to talk with Gabe Rench about being arrested for singing in Moscow, Idaho. If you were listening to the first segment, you heard this amazing, almost hard to believe story that happened in Moscow, Idaho. Our guest today, Gabe Rench, was arrested right in front of his mom and the rest of the people from mostly his church who had gathered there to worship God outside just by singing psalms. And Gabe, if you could maybe give us a little bit more of the context of what was going on. I think that there have been other protest groups out there, maybe BLM or similar groups in your same area. You also even mentioned that even law enforcement officers there where you were being held at the jail inside without masks on, but they were not being cited. You were the one being arrested. Maybe give us a little bit of that. And then could you also just tell us a little bit of the backstory about your chief of police who was right there on the video when you were being arrested? You know him, and I believe you've had quite a bit of interacting with him in a positive way before this happened. So maybe you could just kind of fill some of those details in for us right now.
Yes, you bet. So the governor's orders were in effect in June. And at that time, so the mayor's resolution had not started until July 2nd, but the governor's orders were in effect in June. And at that time, you couldn't gather in groups of more than 50 in June, according to the governor's orders. Now, our city council gave Black Lives Matter a permit to do a protest in downtown where there were more than 50 people from Black Lives Matter that attended that rally. I think that was June 10th or 11th. And so our city council basically rolled out the red carpet to Black Lives Matter against the governor's orders in June. And then in July, again, I think it was around July 11th. My dates are hazy, but July 10th through the 15th, somewhere in that time frame, Black Lives Matter also had a protest in town where some people were wearing masks, some people weren't, some people were social distancing, some people weren't. It was a mixed bag, and no enforcement there. And so that's kind of a little background on, my friend Andrew Clavin texted me the next day when I got out of jail. He said, if you had shot a cop, you probably wouldn't have been arrested. Or if you had a Molotov cocktail, you probably wouldn't have been arrested. But singing psalms is apparently taboo if you aren't wearing a mask.
It's so dangerous nowadays.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Gabe, let me follow up with that,
Please.
Gabe, because you're talking there about the hypocritical response, which we're finding all across the country. Governors dictating these kinds of things. We've done a lot here in Pennsylvania, across the country, saying these dictates are not even according to the law. They're not lawful because they're coming out of the executive branch, either the governors or, in your case, they're perhaps the mayor. Same problem. So that's a big issue, and they're very hypocritical. And that follows with themselves not following the law. But from the response of what you have seen there in your area, what have you seen from other quote-unquote Christians, whether they may be the woke group that may be out there or other? How have they responded to what you have done and the fact that this has now become known and across the country and people are looking at Moscow, Idaho, and what's happened there to you? How are they responding?
Yeah, so Christians in our community I think it's kind of been a mixed bag of responses. I've had a lot of encouragement from all Christians. I got arrested on Wednesday. I got out Wednesday night. Thursday, my pastor said, hey, let's do another psalm sing on Friday. Let's do this again. And so on Friday at 5 o'clock, we gathered to sing psalms at City Hall. And there's about 500 people that showed up. And legislators, people from all over, hour and a half to 5 hours away, showed up that evening at 5 o'clock to sing psalms with us. It was glorious. It was fantastic. But I've also had the response in town where like, hey, why don't you just love your neighbor and wear your mask? And my response to that is, I'm no Rosa Parks here. Don't, I'm not claiming this, but like, why doesn't Rosa Parks just sit in the back of the bus? Love your people, obey the mayor. This is what the mayor says in our town. Jim Crow laws are the law of the land. Love your neighbor and sit in the back of the bus. And so I think we're in this moment where Christians really need to read the story and really need to understand the times of what's going on. And we're kind of refusing that a little bit. Some Christians are refusing that and not thinking that, there's actually greater liberties at stake here that we need to be able to see and understand.
Love your mayor and wear your mask. I wonder what verse of Scripture that is or what book of the Bible that one's found in, Gabe. But very interesting, isn't it? Love your neighbor and wear your mask. Well, it's interesting to see what you're going through out there, and I'm, of course, sorry to hear about it. But the Bible tells us that the time will come when those who love Jesus Christ will suffer persecution, and certainly we are seeing that in many places around us these days. What is your goal to see what will take place as a result of the difficulty that you've gone through there in your hometown of Moscow, Idaho?
Yeah, well, obviously as a Christian, everything we do, we want to seek God and his kingdom, and knowing that everything else will kind of fall into place. And so our first goal, our first heart's desire is to glorify God in everything we do. And so one of the interesting things that has started to happen out of all this is other cities have started to do psalm sings in front of their city hall. My buddy, Pastor Joel Webben, he did a psalm sing in front of San Diego City Hall last week. I've had friends, or I've heard of, in Georgia, psalm sings happening in Georgia. I've heard of international psalm sings starting to pop up, and I would love, I think if Christians are going to reclaim the center, you reclaim the center by worshiping God first and foremost. Politics is important, but politics is secondary to our worship with God. But how we worship God should impact our politics absolutely. And so I would love to see psalm sings pop up all over the place in cities across the land. I mean, think of how strategic that kind of protest is. You're worshiping God. You're practicing your First Amendment rights, which historically the courts and the Supreme Court has done a very good job of protecting our rights to worship. And so your protest is worshiping, the right to assemble, and the right to a petition, and you're mixing all that in your First Amendment rights in that protest in the public square, and you're worshiping God. Your eyes are on the Lord, and and so I would love to see psalm sings pop up throughout our nation, all over cities all over.
That would be amazing. That would truly be awesome to see Christians, pastors, congregations, just communities of churches coming together in their local community and throughout the United States just to singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, having these psalm sings. And, we recently talked, and we talk about this sort of stuff a lot on our program, but we were talking with Jeff Coleman about just the political environment and the civility or lack thereof and things. And he was talking about the need for Christians to be kind and not be protesting in a worldly kind of way. And this is exactly, what we were talking about. We've seen this with other Christians who have been arrested illegally and wrongfully. The same kind of things happening. We had Alveda King on our program a few weeks ago, and her talking about her whole family, including her uncle who was assassinated. How their goal was to be peaceful and oftentimes singing hymns and things, and it's so different many times now. But kind of in that vein, if you could maybe also kind of tell us a little bit about some of the conversation that you had with the very police chief that was there kind of overseeing your arrest. I know we just have a few minutes here left, but maybe you could kind of talk to us so that people see your heart and kind of see the context of the situation, that you weren't just trying to get arrested.
Yeah, so I've been working on irrelated, not knowing all this was going to go down. I've been reaching out to the police chief, building a relationship with them. We had them actually. I host a political TV show called Crosspolitic. Crosspolitic.com is our website. And I had him on our show at one point. This is probably back in March, maybe, or May. And then, I've been into his office about this whole moment. I've been talking to him. I went to his office to actually visit with him specifically about the mandate and resolution that came into place on July 2nd. This is before they extended to January 5th. So I've been working hard to build a relationship. Well, when I got when the city council extended the resolution through January 5th, I went into his office. I emailed him. I didn't go in his office. I emailed him Tuesday morning, and my email said, man, I'm praying for you, and that do not not let this be a Peter moment. In other words, do not run when trouble is in front of you, trouble that you need to face. I said, be Daniel. This is your Daniel moment. And so that was my email Tuesday morning, and our pastors hadn't even decided to do a psalm sing yet. And I just emailed that to him regardless. And then when he arrested me, or when his arresting officer was cuffing me, he was standing right behind him. And I said to him, I said, this was your Daniel moment. So I rebuked him as I'm getting him arrested. I mean, I love our chief. I understand that the pickle, the challenge that our officers were in. The mayor had a unconstitutional edict that he was wanting the police officers to enforce. But I also think as a Christian, you need to be able to sort through at what point do you defend your citizens against petty tyrannical orders like what our mayor did.
That is so true. And we don't want to miss, those of us listening, we don't want to miss our Daniel moments that we have to stand up. Gabe, I know we just have a few seconds here left. If you could maybe give us your website again, or any information or final words for those listening today.
Yes, crosspolitic.com is where you can go. I also have a podcast network that we've been working on. It's called fightlaughfeast.com. And those would be some good websites to go to. As for Psalm Sings, we have a Facebook group where it's Fight Laugh Feast Family Facebook group. And if you guys should tag that, we have a Fight Laugh Feast Facebook page and a Cross Politic Facebook page also, and tag those, and we'll help get the word out. I would love to see these psalm sings go all over the place and everyone hear about them, and it just become a really fun and cool movement. Back to your point earlier, what a joyful way to protest. You don't want to be cantankerous as Christians. You don't want to be bitter as Christians. You don't want to be angry when you go out in public and petition your leaders. So sing psalms. You cannot not smile praising God, and this is a great way to do it.